My name is Yuri, and I would like to talk about contributing to open source projects. I've been working with Robot Framework for several years now, and since last year I've been helping out with the Selenium library project. Taking the first steps to contributing to open source can be daunting. There are so many projects out there, and people working on these projects are often very knowledgeable that it can be intimidating. We also tend to strive for perfection and can be quite critical of ourselves. I know I am. It turned out to be way less scary than I originally thought and has actually been a pleasant experience all around. For me, it started when I was at RoboCon and on stage was Ed Manlove. He was talking about needing people for working on the Selenium library. I thought to myself, that might be something I'd like to do, but what can I do to help? After the talk, I stepped up to Ed and said to him, "Hi, I heard you were asking for people to help out. I'm not a software developer, but maybe I can help. What kind of help do you need?" Am I good enough for open source? Over the last 13 years or something, working as a tester and working in test automation, I've met a lot of people. Never have I met someone that wasn't at least good at something. Yet, many people also doubt their skills, often comparing themselves with others that have more experience. It can be difficult to put yourself out there and try to help out people that are more experienced than you are. But I found out that it really isn't difficult. A bit scary perhaps, but once you take the first steps, you'll notice that it's not that difficult or scary at all. Let me try to give you some tips and ideas on how to contribute to open source, regardless of your experience or knowledge. Let's get you contributing to open source. So, why would you contribute? It's a game of give and take. You give your time to better a project and you take away all kinds of experiences. It's great that you're willing to help, but what's in it for you? I'll give you some reasons to contribute. So first off, improving. If you're also a user of the software you wish to contribute to, you may already have ideas about features that would improve your daily usage. You may be aware of bugs in the code that you could take a look at. And if it's something you work with on a daily basis, being able to improve functionality can make your life easier, and at the same time, you're also making it easier for others. But also improving your knowledge of the project, understanding its inner workings. When I started, I did not know how Selenium library was tested, how the testing tool I use on a daily basis was tested. After reading through the documentation, trying to run the code for myself, I now have somewhat of an understanding of how it's being tested. And that knowledge is something I can take with me to other projects in the future, maybe. Community. Getting in touch with people that, like you, are using this project. See what they use the project for and in what way they are using it. But also getting in touch with people that are building this project, adding functionality to it. I met some of the people working on Robot Framework. And these people, they are lead developers on Robot Framework, its libraries and tooling surrounding it. And I was pleasantly surprised that they're also fun to hang out with and not some unapproachable person way up in their ivory towers. It's also a great way to get in contact with people all over the world, being a part of a community of people that are working on the same goals and are willing to help out or learn from each other. It can be a great way to find people with aligning interests or with experiences they can share that you can use in your work. Learning. It's an excellent way to learn new skills or improve existing skills. Learn how this project is created, how they handle testing, versioning, deployment, communication to the outside world. Learn how others are using the project and learn from their examples or their mistakes. Teaching others how to work with the project or how to set things up can also be a great learning experience. And getting new insights and staying up to date with your knowledge. But also learning how to work together with people all around the world. How they work as a team, learning how teams organize and prioritize work being done. Or your career. it can look great on your resume. Having knowledge of a project is one thing, but showing that you're an active contributor to it, it can sway possible employers. It can show that you're a team player and have excellent know-how of the project and that you are familiar with its latest developments. Maybe it can say something about your skills working remotely. I've heard it said that GitHub is the new resume. And recruitment's often looking at your GitHub activity to see whether or not you are a possible candidate. And feel good. It can feel good being part of something. When I watch a movie, I normally skip the credits, but you can imagine if your name is in the credits, how that feels. It's a small gesture, but it can make you feel appreciated. Seeing your name pop up in the acknowledgements, that feels good. I've been working with Selenium Library for some time now, and I've been able to help it get a little bit better. It's pretty cool to be part of something like that, and it's kind of empowering. And since I was working with Ed on Selenium Library, he asked if I would be willing to be a co-speaker on his talk about the future of Selenium Library. Well, I say that he asked, but he actually just added me as a co-speaker and asked afterwards. Well, I can hear lots of people saying, yeah, but I'm not a developer. I'm not that good at writing code. Well, it doesn't have to be code that you're contributing. You don't need to code. Of course, creating new functionality and writing code are often the first things that you would think about when talking about contributing. But maybe you can help someone test their code or perform code reviews. Most of the work I've been doing last year is just code reviewing, looking at somebody else's code and seeing if their tests are useful. Do they make sense? If you look at these tests a year from now, can you still understand what you were trying to say there, what you were trying to test there? Helping out running alpha or beta versions can help prevent the need for patches quickly after a version has been released. And also, quite often when an issue is raised, it can be helpful if a small test or an example project is available to quickly reproduce the problem. If you can help create these tests or provide this feedback during development, it can add a lot of value. And maybe designing is your passion, in the broadest sense of the word. Can you create a cool new logo or branding? Or do you have experience with web design? Things like the user interface and user experience are subjects you can discuss without having to write a single line of code. And designing new functionality often requires several design iterations. You can help refine requirements and set boundaries for these new parts of the software. Or translations. English is often the main language of a software project where there are multiple people from different parts of the world working together. But also, quite often, English isn't their first language. If English is your first language, maybe you can help with grammar and spelling checks. Or if, like me, English isn't your first language, maybe you can help create translations. Or see if you can help make some English text more readable for non-native speakers. Or documentation. Documentation is something that can quite often be outdated or missing. Can you help update the documentation perhaps? Or remove incorrect information, outdated information? Maybe create some new screenshots. Or perhaps you can help improve the readability and add some examples. Or helping create a style guide for writing the documentation. Organizing. Working on an open source project with multiple people from different parts of the world can require some organizational skills. Sometimes a team meeting is needed and people need to align their calendars to find a time when they can have a meeting, a call. Or you can also organize meetups, knowledge sharing sessions for people that are interested in the project. Or maybe you can help create a workshop and share your knowledge. On a bigger scale, you can also help organizing a conference or see if you can organize an event somewhere near you. And join in on the discussions. Robot Framework has an excellent Slack channel with topics for all aspects of Robot Framework, its libraries and its tooling. Don't hesitate to join and see if you can help others with their questions. Every now and then I see people asking for feedback on new functionality or features of Robot Framework. So it's an excellent opportunity to give your opinion, and you might help shape the future of Robot Framework. Going to events is also an excellent way to help out, being an active part of the community and supporting the project. Events can be a great way to inspire people to be part of a community, but also bring people together where they can create new ideas and get new insights. And if there's a subject you know a lot about, try submitting a proposal for a talk or do a workshop, or if you are interested, do a quick lightning talk. And what better way to promote a project than talking about its possibilities? So where to look? Where do you look first? I suggest start with tools and libraries that you are familiar with. Start with what you know. And maybe there are bugs that you want fixed or features or improvement you wish they had. It's a good starting point. And you could take a look at their GitHub pages and check out what kind of code and documentation they have available there. You can look at issues they have there and see if there are any issues there that you have some experience with or ones that look interesting to you. Often issues can be labeled with labels like good first issue or help wanted or needs review, something like that. They are generally well defined and can be good starting points. You can look at the README to see if there's any info on how to contribute to the project. Quite often it's at the bottom of the README, or sometimes there's a separate file for the contributing guide. And if there isn't one, maybe that's a good starting point. See if you can start with creating a document, how to contribute to this project. Ask around. And go join the discussions page, register for the forums, and see what's being actively discussed. See what kind of problems other people are running into and how they are talking about it and how they are solving it together. It's also an easier way to ask or quickly answer questions. Conferences are great places to get in contact with people working on a project, and it's easier to share contact information and talk about helping out. And some of the best ideas come from random conversations during a conference. Don't be afraid to talk to others on a conference. Don't just stay and talk to your colleagues and the people you know only. So if I summarize the last year for me, and I personally have had a great experience helping out with open source software development. It can help you improve your skills and your knowledge about how software is developed in an open source project. And I found out there are many ways to contribute, and a lot of them only require that you are willing to help. And people working on these projects often welcome and appreciate the help. So yes, you are good enough for open source. So I urge you, get started. Put yourself out there and ask what you can do to help, or tell them what you are able to do. And remember, every little bit helps. Now, in closing, I'd like to leave you with this question. Who is next? I hope I've been able to show you that there are many ways to contribute and that every little bit helps. Open source is about collaborating with others. If I've been able to at least help one of you take the first steps into open source development, that will be a great success. So who will be next? Who among you will help and contribute to the open source landscape? I would love to hear about your experiences. And who knows, maybe next year you will be up on stage on RoboCon to share your knowledge or help inspire others. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome stuff, Yuri. Okay, I see in the green room we're about to go live. Get your questions in Slido. So if you're watching on robocon.io, it's right to the right of the video, Slido. put in your question or even your experiences that you've had contributing to open source, so you could share with the crowd and with Yuri. All right, Yuri, we're about to go live again. Let's do it. Hey, Yuri, welcome back.
Good to be back again.
Awesome. Good to see you. So I guess the first thing that came to my mind is, have you convinced anyone yet in the year that you've been working to contribute to open source?
I don't know. I haven't heard directly from others. I have been talking about it a lot, also among my colleagues. So I like to think I did.
Awesome. So a few questions coming up. The first one is, do you know any mistakes do new open source contributors often make and more experienced contributors should keep in mind when onboarding new team members?
Well, yeah, I don't think that's necessarily something that goes wrong, but sometimes it's difficult to find how to get started. Like I said, maybe there isn't a guide for how to get started. So that's something that can definitely help. Yeah, be approachable, have some way of contacting you, saying, okay, we are here in these Slack channels, or we are approachable via this email. That helps a lot. I think those are the the biggest things I've noticed thus far.
Excellent. Does it ever yell at you? I'd go, "What are you doing?" Like, what's the communication like when you work with multiple people contributing on open source? Could that be an issue?
I'm glad there's a mute button. So no, there's yeah, well, it differs. You notice there are a lot of people, and a lot of people, they have different opinions and different ways to give out their opinions. And I try to always approach it in such a way that nobody means in it a bad way, but they can sometimes put some emotion into something. Just, I totally don't agree with this. Just keep an open mind with that. Yeah, mostly those kinds of things are yeah. And for the rest, it's just like working with my colleagues remotely. Just have to find a correct time zone.
Right.
When I'm working with Ed, he lives in the United States. That's a completely different time zone from where I live. So yeah, sometimes you have to make some planning.
Do you do anything like? Is it like a real code project where someone submits what they want to put into the main code branch, and you do a code review, or like, what's the process usually like when someone's submitting new code?
Yeah, it's mostly something like that. They have a new implementation done, and they just create a pull request on Git and add me as a reviewer, or just put it up there and it's open for review. So I try to look at it that way.
Now, what's I going to say? I lost my train of thought. All right, go to the next question because I had an awesome follow up on that, but I'll think about it when I get to it. You touched on imposter syndrome holding you back. What advice could you give to someone to overcome their doubts and put yourself out there?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. It's I didn't explicitly name imposter syndrome, but it's definitely the one that's in the back of your mind at that moment. I think it's very common among software developers, or also among testers. Yeah, it's hard to doubt to overcome that doubt. So, but what really helped for me was being in an environment where you feel like you can make mistakes. So, like RoboCon, like the environment here is excellent. You can just talk around and you have fun, and people are very approachable. That helps a lot. So, being among people is easier because you can easier doubt yourself if you are sitting alone behind a screen and trying to type something, because you aren't really interacting with people sometimes. So that definitely helps, being among people and seeing, hey, they don't know everything. They're also human.
Absolutely. What has been the best and worst experience?
Well, the best experience for me was the first time I was mentioned as being a part of uh, the release that came out. I just, yeah, that felt super good. being added as a team member of the Selenium library team, excellent. And the worst, yeah, well, it is difficult sometimes, and you want to improve upon some stuff, and and that's, yeah, you don't have the time always. That yeah, it's difficult to have those moments.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this as a benefit, but I would think it would be. When you contribute to open source, does it open up your network to almost give you other opportunities with other jobs, possibly? So even though you're not getting paid for the open source, you could get a job like through the network you built up because you were contributing to open source. I don't know if that makes sense, but have you seen
Yeah,
that
yeah,
happen?
absolutely. I think it absolutely does. I touched on it a little bit, that it can be very good for your career if you just, yeah, you can see your GitHub actions of your contributions there. So people look at that often nowadays. Also, recruitment companies, and if they see your name out there, or you can put it on your resume, I'm working with this open source library. I think that definitely helps. I mean, if they're looking for somebody who has experience with robot framework, that's okay. But if you can say, I have experience, I don't just have experience, but I'm actually working on it. I'm helping improve it. I'm being part of that active community, so I know what's going on there. It's definitely an advantage.
Nice. So how about work-life balance? I could think someone saying, "Oh my gosh, I don't have time for this." But I would think if you work for a company that uses an open source tool, can you use that to convince them to say, "Hey, can I spend 10% of my time contributing to this open source because our company relies on this software?"
Yeah, definitely worth a while, worth a try. Um, of course, it depends upon your employer, but I'm lucky my employer allows me to do those things, give me some time for it, give me maybe every now and then a day off, or allows me to go to a conference like that. And but it doesn't necessarily have to take lots of time. If there are 10,000 people that spend 10 minutes reviewing something, that's a lot of reviewing being done. And it just costs 10 minutes of one person's time, for example.
So I don't know if you think this is true, but I've heard from on my podcast people say opening up a bug report for an open source project is contributing. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I believe that's absolutely something because, um, yeah, lots of people, especially the people working on a project, they know the project in and out. But they also use it in a certain way, and they know how to use it and how to unknowingly work around the bugs because they don't use it in such a way. So if they don't get some way of knowing what's going on there, yeah, definitely helping give them feedback in the form of a bug report definitely works.
How do you find your partner for code reviews, testing, all this QA stuff? Is it a specific person or are you always looking for someone new in the community?
Yeah, well, I'm mostly the one doing the code review testing at this moment, but I can imagine it doesn't always have to be the same person. And sometimes it's not necessarily the code itself. I mean, if it works and the tests are succeeding, then it's often already you are in a far stage. But if the test has a weird name, anybody can review those kinds of things. So is it a specific person you're always looking for? Yeah, if there's somebody who has a lot of experience and you know that person, that's great. If you don't, try to reach out and see whoever gets there, because the person that does the reviewing at that moment, if somebody is doing that, then that's the right person at that moment, because if there isn't anybody, there's nothing being done. So everything more than nothing is good. Well, not necessarily good, but at least yeah, it's good that somebody is there and willing to help.
Absolutely. So this jogged my memory, what I was thinking. So you said you understand how Selenium library is tested now. So do you have like regression tests that kick off when you commit new code? Is it like a real software project? How does that work?
It's almost like a real software
That's
project. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, no, it's there are unit tests for basic units, and there are also acceptance tests for the general keywords themselves. So yeah, whenever there's a new functionality, the unit tests run, and those are of course the quick tests. So these tests run for a few seconds in total, and you get some feedback whether or not the basics are working. And then you go into the complete tests, and they are the acceptance tests. They are simple tests that open a web page and have different kinds of links and selector items, you name it.
Great. And probably time for one last question is, if we want to contribute, what should be the approach? Can you guide us on this?
What should be the approach? I don't think there's necessarily one approach. The fact that you ask this question, if you want to contribute, is already the best start. I think just having the motivation to help out, and then I think it also helps if the maintainers and everybody is also approachable for helping out. So yeah, like I said, I gave some tips on where to start looking. Go look there, or just post it on Slack or the forums. I want to help out. How can I help? I think that's a good start. And yeah, it might be a bit daunting at first, but yeah, everybody else is also just human.
Absolutely. So Yuri, thanks again for helping out with RoboCon. You like twice you've been here, so really appreciate all your time and efforts and all you've been doing for the community. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Talk to you later. Cheers.
Okay, cheers.